Got lots to talk to you about today. One, what about our entertainment industry? What is going on with Hollywood? I mean, we always knew it was to the left, but how far to the left? It's been absolutely stunning, right? I think we've literally seen, I've had an epiphany. I don't know if you have, just even watching children's shows on television and seeing the progressive ideological push in these shows. But, you know, we're complaining a lot about that, right? The right has been complaining about that. Conservatives complain about that. Independents complain about that. What about doing something about that? That's why we have Michael Pack on the show today. I've had him on the show before. This was when he was with the Trump administration, and he survived that melee, of course, but he is doing some incredible work as a documentary filmmaker. He was, if you remember, he was the CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, and that included Voice of America and all the other, basically, I guess you would say, government-run entities that were radio stations overseas, like Radio Sawa, VOA, that were basically promoting U.S. agenda overseas. Now he's back to doing what he loves, and that is documentary film work. And he did this great documentary film on Justice Clarence Thomas, which, by the way, he's going to explain in the upcoming interview. You have to hear this, of how that documentary, which is based on a Supreme Court justice, has been literally banned from Amazon. They try to act like it's no big deal, but it really is. Amazon did this on purpose, and he's going to explain why he believes that in this interview. And he's going to talk a little bit about Hollywood and what we can do to get back, the freedom that we need in both in the studios as well as on television, and for our children's future. What we need to do as parents and people to get that moving again. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. Go to saracarter.com. It's a brand new website. It looks fantastic. I can't wait for you all to get there, see it. And we've been seeing so many more people signing up for our email list, by the way, which is important because this way I can stay in direct communication with you. This way, the social media giants like Google, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they can't shadow ban. They can't silence my voice because it'll reach you directly. And I think that it's such a great tool to be able to email everybody directly. Now is a critical time, folks, to be vigilant in the defense of our freedom. And there's no better way to do so than by joining the Association of Mature American Citizens. I'm so happy that they are a sponsor of this show. AMAC believes in fighting the good fight against reckless government spending and the ever-expanding scope of the federal government, helping small businesses, securing our borders, supporting our military, and respecting our veterans. We need that. Standing for the flag and kneeling before God. By joining AMAC, you are literally taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every single benefit that AARP offers. But guess what? It doesn't have that liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. So we're going to have Michael Pack on the show today, and he's coming up in a few minutes. He gives incredible insight into what's happening in the United States and how far the progressive movement has seeped into our entertainment industry, our documentary filmmaking, as well as our television shows. I have talked to you all about this so many times. It's really tough as a parent. We're trying to monitor everything our children are watching. For a lot of us, when I was a kid, it was the Disney show, the Mickey Mouse Club, different TV shows, even on PBS. Even though like Sesame Street and other shows kind of leaned to the left a little bit, there wasn't a big concern about us children at the time being indoctrinated, right? Because for the most part, it was kind of a sacred territory. Of course, people had their own political leanings, but it wouldn't be something that that in a sense would feel like we were in a communist country, right? Like in Cuba, for example, children go to elementary school and they talk about Fidel Castro, they did when he was alive, as being like their father. They talk about the fatherland. They talk about how basically their parents are not as important as the state itself. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. That's what we see in other nations where the state has more power than the individual parents over their children. And I think that's what we're actually seeing happening in America. That's the reason why so many parents across the country are concerned about the teachings of critical race theory, why they're concerned about the fact that their children are basically able to take, medication basically to stop their puberty. Like in California, I guess it was like kids can make the decision at the age of 10 without even discussing it with their parents, that they can take this medication if they feel they may be, if they're a female, but they feel they may be a man or a male. And if they're a male, if they feel they may be a female. It's just this craziness where it's taking the authority away from the parent and giving it over to the state and to the child. And that's what really concerns me. Now you turn on Disney Channel and you turn on like the various different shows for children across all the networks. And you'll see that indoctrination. I don't need to hammer in on each individual show, and I'm not going to, but there's times where I turn on shows or even on Netflix. There was this one show, it's a dive club show. It came from Australia. It was rated G. And I watched the first 2 episodes like with my daughter, and it seemed like maybe it's a little bit more like a teenager show. And then I think it was episode 3 or something where all of a sudden I'm in the kitchen and my daughter's like, "Mom, the 2 high school girls are kissing." And I was like, what? I mean, this is supposed to be rated G? I mean, I can't even let my kid watch TV anymore with a rating. I don't care what's going on. My 9-year-old doesn't need to be watching 2 women kiss or 2 high school girls kiss. So there's this idea, and I'm not saying that I'm not, this has nothing to do really with the idea of them being gay. That's not it. It has to do with the fact that my child is still a child. And I want them to have some innocence while they can in their life without complicating it, without making them worry about it, without that being an issue, right? Without that being an issue. And now we're seeing that a lot more. I hear a lot more from parents and emails and, people contacting me and even my friends saying, "Oh my gosh, you can't imagine what's happening in school. You can't imagine what they're teaching my child. You can't imagine this book in the library that they've basically have as required reading or on their reading list is pornographic, or talking about all of these sexual deviancies or things that, that are very concerning, like pedophilia. That's what I'm talking about. And it's being assigned to middle school students. So it's going to be a lot more lighthearted than what I just said right now to you. But these are things that I'm concerned about, things that Michael Pack is trying to work to rectify in his new company, at least trying to show some common middle ground. And also, we as conservatives and even as independents, we need to be producing and putting out great films, great documentaries. We need to have big investors, right? We can't just keep pumping out junk. People don't want to watch junk. They don't want to see another, maybe the end of the world show or whatever people think like the conservative movement is about. That's not it. I think we're about freedom. I think that we should espouse the fundamental principles that make our nation great. That's what's important here, not what we're seeing on all of these shows. Remember, while we're not paying attention, while we're sleeping at the wheel, somebody else is teaching our children. And if we're not paying attention to what they're learning, and by the way, and somebody else, aka Hollywood, is basically putting together the most progressive agenda ever. And they've got the money to back it. We need to wake up. We need to start doing what's right. We need to start making freedom great again. And that's why I've got Michael Pack on the show. Folks, Mike Lindell is an inventor and a CEO of My Pillow. And by the way, he's my friend. And he's been keeping a close eye on the recent supply chain issues. And he wants you to know that My Pillow is in stock, guys. There's no back orders and no delayed shipping. That's because the My Pillow brand is made 100% right here in the United States. And they have built a huge inventory to ensure their customers have gifts for everyone. Christmas is not canceled with My Pillow, folks. Shop with confidence, knowing you'll receive gifts on time and with no issues. All My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. My favorite products are the Giza Dream Sheets and the dog beds. I'm telling you, I love the Giza Dream Sheets. I've even bought them for some of my friends and some of my coworkers for Christmas this year. I think they're that nice. You guys will not miss out on that. Oh, and by the way, the towels are amazing. They're amazing. Go to mypillow.com and click on radio listener specials for specials like 40% off all my slippers. Great product too. And 50% off all My Pillow mattress toppers. Enter promo code Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 for great My Pillow specials. That's 1-800-685-7221. Use promo code Carter at checkout. Save now just in time for giving the ultimate gift and comfort with the best deals of the year on all My Pillow products. And without any further delay, I got Michael Pack, documentary filmmaker and CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media. First, I'd like to welcome you back, Michael Pack. You're not with the administration anymore, not with the Voice of America, but you're back and you're doing some incredible work. You're a documentary filmmaker. I don't know if a lot of people remember that, but and you were also CEO, U.S. Agency for Global Media from June 2020 through January 2021. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now, because it's been a while since we've talked.
That's right. We talked when I was still in the government. So I've gone back to being a filmmaker. My last film was a biography of Clarence Thomas called Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. Did really well on PBS, on movie theaters until they closed down, and then finally now it's streaming. We did have the experience that Amazon canceled it last February in the beginning of Black History Month. Why? I mean, so he was, as Justice Thomas says in the film, not the right black man, clearly. And in spite of it getting a lot of attention being canceled, Jason Riley wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal. 20 senators led by Tom Cotton wrote a letter to Jeff Bezos. They claim it's just an algorithm. They're eliminating a lot of documentaries. But my question is, why in the last 9 months or so haven't they put it back on? Whether you like Justice Thomas or not, he is one of the most important black men in America, and people should hear what he has to say. And it was okay for
Rightly
PBS.
so.
It might have been okay for Amazon. So it goes to the point that these institutions like Amazon are very powerful and are not reluctant to use their power, and we have to respond.
I think it's just absolutely stunning to me. I can't begin to tell you how many officials and entertainers and others that I've interviewed who have talked about the censorship and the ability for these social media giants, which I have described over and over again in my podcast. These are the most powerful corporations in human history. We have never seen anything quite like this, but they are literally trying to erase certain people, ideas, against the principles that our nation stands for, which is stunning to me. I know Jenny Thomas, Justice Thomas's wife. She's a wonderful lady. Justice Thomas is a great figure in America, as somebody who I think exemplifies like the best that our country has to offer. And here we have, because he is a conservative justice, you have this left liberal. I just call them a cartel. It's like a cartel, and they're just ripping apart anyone and everyone that has a different idea than they do about the way things should be. And that's got to be pretty daunting for a filmmaker. In the 21st century, that we're living under these repressive regimes.
It is daunting. I mean, let me tell your listeners and viewers that they can still see the film. If they go to our website, manifoldproductions.com, they can find out where it is streaming. But actually, people at Amazon don't care that it can be found in many other places like Fox Nation, like Salem, like iTunes. They want it on Amazon. The power is really there. But I think I beseech your listeners and viewers to see it. It is a great film, but it's part of a bigger problem. And the problem really is that for many, many decades, not just recently, we have let the left tell our stories about our history and our politics. You know, and they choose to tell the stories about the environment, about the Cold War, about recent history, about the Trump administration, but about the Reagan administration, about anything. And we simply have ceded that to them. We've done a good job on our side of complaining, but we're not making enough cultural products to counter them. We're not making enough movies and television at a high enough quality. So I'm really trying to address this bigger problem now, not just go back to making films, but try to make sure our side has a chance to get its voice out there. And a lot of it is which stories you choose to tell. We chose to tell the Clarence Thomas story. Obviously, another group of filmmakers have chosen to tell the Ruth Bader Ginsburg story. And I say, great. But they both have to be out there. Right. I mean, her story, on the Ginsburg film, on the other hand, was Oscar nominated, The Toast of Sundance, you know, no problem there. But we need a vibrant America where both sides are out there. And so to do that, we on our side have to get serious. I mean, look, it's a market. We can participate in the market. We can sort of counter it. But since the 60s, we've let the left essentially tell all these stories. You know, in the 60s, they announced to the whole world they were going to do a long march through the institutions, including the university, including now big tech and woke capital, but also Hollywood and the culture. And we have done nothing to counter it. So just in my own area of nonfiction television, there is a sort of renaissance of it. There's more documentaries and nonfiction television than ever before on Hulu, on Amazon, on Netflix, on HBO, on Showtime. And it's all on the left. It's all on the left. It's either neutral or on the left. And there's a huge volume of it. We need to actually counter that with, if not as huge a volume, at least a significant volume. And I have to say, Sarah, that the stuff on the left is of high quality. The sort of craft has gone up. They're very entertaining. They use graphics. They use recreations well. It's not cheesy. They're entertaining, compelling films. And our side does very few films, and what's out there is often not great, even though that's sometimes made by personal friends of mine, so I don't want to name anybody. But
I was going to say we're not going to mention some of those films.
We're not going to do that.
But I know what you're talking about.
But our side, you know, makes this strident propaganda, and their side tells compelling stories, and we have to sort of reverse that, and we have to do it right away.
Let me ask you this, Michael. You're absolutely right, but there's a huge issue at play here. First of all, I think for decades, a good portion of America has been asleep, not purposefully, but because, you know, parents are so busy working. People are trying to just pay the bills. They're not really paying attention. Sure, they're going to the movies, but they're not really thinking about it, you know, that much. You know, they're watching fun films like, you know, I mean, we could go throwbacks. I saw the other night Stargate or something like that, you know, from the 90s or whatever. I'm like, look how young Kurt Russell is in that film, or, you know, and then I was thinking about Goldie Hawn and Private Benjamin and all those old fun films, but they've become very politicized and ideological. And they were even then to a certain extent, but not so much. Now I put on Disney Channel, for example, and my daughter is like, what are radical monarchs, mommy? And it was like a commercial that was on that was like the Girl Scouts, but it came out of Oakland. And it's these young girls, and you can only be a member if you were a girl of color, and you can march in like gay pride parades or protest the White House and get badges. And I was like, holy smokes. I thought I was looking at a version of The Onion or, you know, the Babylon Bee. I didn't think that was real. And I had to like look it up. I was like, is this real? And there's an indoctrination process happening on the networks and in the movies that is so far beyond what I could ever imagine happening. And it's in the TV shows now. And even right now, I saw Meghan McCain's column. I thought it was great on Sex and the City, how it just completely fell on its face to her because it like the whole show's been destroyed because it's a big ideological, remake now. What do? We have actors like Jon Voight, Christy Swanson, Dean Cain, others out there that are being ostracized because they stand up for conservative values or for freedom and for America, like the basic things that our founding fathers established. What do we do when the left is so powerful that we have to like squeeze in just like you do to get your film in and just beg people to find a platform to put it on so we can watch it?
Well, it is a big problem, a huge problem. And the Hollywood end is sort of the hardest to deal with. I say at least we can deal with the documentary nonfiction end. Lower budgets, easier to get it produced. They control all the stars, all the A-list stars. We have a handful of B-list stars. But with documentaries, we can sort of get them out there and get our stories out there, as we did with the Clarence Thomas film. But even there, they have it all sort of wired, and they've been working on it since the 60s, and they pour, I like to say, at least tens of billions of dollars in it a year. Public broadcasting alone is a $2.5 billion a year industry. We pour, tens of millions. So it's a gap of tens of millions to tens of billions spread over 50 years. So not only have they a vast volume of left-leaning programs that are, as you say, Sarah, increasingly politicized, they just assume they're politics now, but they built all the ancillary institutions. They have the distribution companies, the publicity companies, the marketing companies, the funding entities, and it starts with film school. There are at least 4,000 universities in America. All of them have film schools, graduating hundreds of thousands of wannabe filmmakers every year that are all gone through film schools, sort of encouraging them to be progressive left-wing filmmakers. In my entire life, I have never met a single right-of-center film professor. There may be one, but I've never met him.
No, I've never met them either. And I was thinking about Stella Adler when you talked about the 1960s and, the great acting classes under Stella Adler, and a lot of famous actors went to her school to learn how to act and, to be a part of her troupe. And I was talking to one of those actors, I'm not going to mention his name right now, but he was filling me in on how, and he's a very famous actor, but how it was like an indoctrination process back then too in Hollywood. Like when she was very open about her communist leanings, and the acting classes were, they would discuss, politics, and they would talk about, communism and socialism. But here's the clincher, right? This is what always surprises me. They make more money than anyone ever.
Right.
Like, I can't even imagine getting the paychecks that some of these folks get. Like a Barbara Streisand paycheck must be amazing. It must be like you're dancing to the bank, and, walking into Neiman Marcus. I'll buy the whole floor. Thank you. In my size, but they're such hypocrites. They're such hypocrites. They want communism and socialism and all this crap for us, for the working class. And I consider myself a working class. Rich and Greg know I am the working class here. I'm like, even when I'm on Fox, I'm not getting that check, right? I'm telling you, I am the working class. And I feel better than I used to, than my $14 an hour at the Daily Bulletin when I got started. I thought that was the biggest paycheck I would ever get in my life, by the way. But but they make millions and tens of millions. And I never see them like communistically giving it all away. Like, I never see them just saying like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and live in the trailer and I'm going to give you should do a documentary on them.
Indeed.
You should just walk around their homes, talk to them, say like, you're a progressive socialist. Why do you have a wall up around your house that's like 20 feet high? And why can't people just approach you? I don't understand.
It is, there is hypocrisy, even humorous hypocrisy in Hollywood, of course. My very first big documentary was called Hollywood's Favorite Heavy, about how then nighttime TV portrayed business and businessmen. It was the Dallas and Dynasty days, but they always think that there's a conspiracy against them, Now there is. Now they made it woke capitalism. But before it was woke, then they thought it was evil. And they themselves were making huge amounts of money, but they always thought of themselves as oppressed workers. I mean, that's why the writers' union, had a strong left-wing bent. They always felt they were being ripped off, and the big money was going to the sort of fat cats. And Barbara Streisand probably feels that way too, Sarah. I don't know. I mean, she's a big, progressive. So they still continue to feel oppressed, and it is sort of an amazing thing. But look, we should just tell our stories. We can't spend our time too much complaining about them. You can complain about them forever. We need to get our stories out there about the way we see America, instead of letting them define America through things like the 1619 Project, where they see an America based on race and racism. We need to tell Americans and the world what America is really like, and our principles that the country was actually founded on. And we need to tell those stories. I mean, and that is...
We need to make freedom cool. We need to make freedom cool, Michael. They've basically taken I think the Chinese Communist Party absolutely loves the 1619 Project and critical race theory, that we're dividing ourselves. You're right. Who do we go to? We got you. We have major donors out there that should be funding or putting their money and investing it in great works of art.
Well, our donors are just reluctant to do that. I mean, when I began in this business years ago, people said, well, Michael, you may want to be a filmmaker, but you're going to find that Republicans are Philistines. And I never thought that could possibly be true, but there's something to it. People on the left love art and artists. They celebrate their filmmakers. They invite them to events. They give them awards. We do not. And I, being one of the few, I know, they're like pushed in a corner. They're nice, they're useful, but they're celebrated and funded and loved on the left. And we really do not do that. So we have to start funding these things. I mean, it goes to the fact that there are plenty of people on the left that are willing to put their money behind making films that reflect their beliefs. You have someone like, Jeff Skoll, who's made a lot of money in Silicon Valley, starting participant, and is going to lose, a few $100 million out of his billions to get ideas he thinks are important to the American people. Our side, no, they don't want to do it. I talk to lots of people who say, well, I've had bad experiences with film, and we always can tell them that all of our films have been nationally broadcast on PBS, which is a good line. But I also feel like that's right. In the film business, there are hits and misses, and things don't work out, and creative people are sort of crazy.
I think PBS is great. I think PBS is great that you're getting it out on PBS, because that's important.
And we should still demand that they do that. They are legally obligated to reflect the true views of the American people across the board. They have failed to do that, and especially their sister organization, NPR, fails to do that on radio. But they're obligated to, and we should hold them to that. But we need to create our own.
But yeah, we should also produce, like you said, we should also be producing and putting together great pieces of work, because
which we just are not.
That's what's going to take the
balance.
We
are not doing that. When I was a senior vice president at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting years ago, I was giving away money, and part of my mission was, in fact, because it's the law, to find filmmakers on the right to fund. And PBS would always say, you can fund them, but if they're not up to our quality, we won't put them on. And that was always legitimate. And a lot of them were extremely low quality, and it was hard to find high quality. So, I mean, one of the things we're trying to do this round, I mean, we just got a generous grant to keep our company in business for a few years and make a bunch of documentaries, and also to train the next generation of right of center documentary filmmakers. So we have to find them and train them. I mean, we have people who make videos for websites, but our people haven't had the experience of making, broadcast quality or theatrically distributed documentaries. And we need to train and create these people. And yes, as you say, make freedom cool. It actually is cool. Just let it be cool. And I think that
right.
And that can really be done. And you don't have to wait for stars, and you don't have to wait for, the hundreds of millions it takes to do a superhero movie. You can make these documentaries, which are now extremely popular on every single streaming service. We need to get our stories out there, as we did with Clarence Thomas. And we have many others that we're planning to do. And I also think it's important, Sarah, that what we do somewhat, is these documentaries that rouse the base, that are very, kind of advocacy, tough-minded things, which is good too. But we need to make films that appeal to the middle. I mean, and that is what these other documentaries do. And our Clarence Thomas film attempts to do. We need to tell these stories in a way that's impartial and fair. And a lot of these stories, the truth is sufficient and not, and appeal to the middle. I mean, we need to, it's a battle as always in America for the middle. I mean, there's the committed right and the committed left, and then there's the third or so that are in the middle. And we need to reach those people with our stories, as the left does very well with reaching them with their stories about things like the 60s or the Cold War or the Reagan years. Their stories are out there, and where are ours? And part of it is that our donors are not really supporting these things with the numbers they should, and that we simply don't take these things as seriously as they do. We believe on our side that it'll all be fixed by politics. I hear this all the time, Sarah, now that I've out of the Trump administration. Everybody tells me, oh, Michael, don't worry about the culture, because we're going to win the, off your election in 2022, and then we'll be back in the White House in 2024, and the next president will fix it. But the next president cannot fix it. The culture isn't a democracy. It is a free market. You have to win it by producing.
Right, 100%. You got to get out there. You got to connect with the people. And by the way, I agree with you on this. I always think that when people say that a conservative or like a centrist documentary filmmaker or filmmaker is doing that, people are automatically thinking that they're going to do a film about the Bible or about or about Armageddon or something. Like it's going to be some kind of like weird, extreme kind of like, I'm going to tell you what you should believe in film. And that's that, right? Or something to do with, maybe an issue like abortion, which is a very serious issue, but that's all they think about. What about just telling the truth? Like you said, just laying it out there and these phenomenal characters of all backgrounds, colors, ideas that can play like such an important role in our children's future, in teaching them about who we are as a nation and who we are as a people. Well, I mean, this is just crazy that we can't get to that point.
That's right.
That the left is owning like the most important part of our nation's, I would say ideological culture, right? Because who teaches our children? Our children sit in front of a TV, in front of the Disney Channel, in front of HBO, Showtime, or Nickelodeon, whatever it is your kids are watching. And if you're not watching it with them, they are learning from somebody else. That is really
true. I mean, children's programming is yet another area which has gotten increasingly ideological. Sesame Street was always pretty ideological, but it's gotten more and more so. I mean, more and more woke messages are in there, from environmental messages to race messages. That's one set. That's yet another area of problems.
Oh, yeah. They've already killed the cows in Sesame Street. The cows are no longer existing. Yeah. We're sending the cows to Mars. They're farting too much, kids. It's
greenhouse gas.
Mom, don't eat that beef. Yeah, greenhouse gas. That's it. So, I mean, it's that serious,
but the stories are out there. I mean, Hollywood was based on telling optimistic stories about America to the world. I mean, Westerns, for example, a whole genre about, celebrating Americans. And that's why people all over the world wanted to be like America. They want to be like John Wayne and come here. And Hollywood was made by immigrants, largely Jewish immigrants, who loved this country and appreciated it, and also thought that by selling these myths about America, they'd make a lot of money, which they did. And those are the stories that people want to hear, that resonate, and they could be told again. And we have such stories in development. They're not hard to find. We don't need more story ideas. There are many. We've done stories on founding fathers. We've done one on George Washington, one on Alexander Hamilton. We want to do one on Thomas Jefferson, a man under attack. And we would portray him in a fair way, a man with faults, but also the writer of the Declaration of Independence, the single greatest political document in American history. And another one on the communism front, we want to do either a biography of Mao Zedong or the Cultural Revolution. We talk about China. Americans are largely ignorant about its history. Mao Zedong was one of the most important people in the last 150 years, and the greatest mass murderer by a lot in human history, tens of millions, conservatively, 50, 60 million, some say, way more than anyone else, even Stalin or Hitler. But he's an amazing character and did amazing things, and it's important to understand them. As Xi is trying to resurrect Mao thinking, and Mao is a hero in China.
Pretty frightening.
If we want to understand what it means to be that kind of a socialist, we have to tell the stories, and we would just tell that story fairly. There are great things about, Mao is a great political figure. I mean, he did an amazing thing pulling the country together. So you tell the positive and the negative. You have to tell these stories fairly. With Thomas Jefferson, too. But the point is to tell the stories that we want to tell. It's where you put the frame and tell these stories and get them out there. And they are the most exciting stories. I mean, the left has had a lot of trouble making political correctness and wokeism exciting television. It inherently isn't. Inherently.
Which is so bizarre because it inherently ostracizing, cancel culture, wokeism, it literally eliminates freedoms. It's not like it's kind of like it goes against the grain, if you would say, of like what maybe people in the 1960s talked about, hey, be freed, let me do whatever I want, kind of thing, let my ideas flow. Well, right now, a lot of those people, who were saying that are not allowing people's ideas to flow. And they're harming our children. They're harming our university systems. They're harming our entire nation.
Well, that's right. And one of the documentary series we want to do is a history of the 60s. The left has told that story in a very celebratory way, from SDS to the Weather Underground to the Black Panthers. These people are celebrated. Even in our schools, my son had a section on how great the Black Panthers were. I mean, in his middle school, even though, these people were,
awesome.
they were, criminals, they were anti-Semitic.
Some of them were terrorists. They were terrorists. They were anti-Semites.
So you have to look fairly at what they said and what they believed in. And of course, many of them are the heroes of the Black Lives Matter movement today. So it's not irrelevant to today. We need to look harder at these people, but fairly. I mean, they also had these breakfast programs. They were also the victims of improper FBI attacks on them. So you can tell the good and the bad. But the left has portrayed the 60s, the radical part of the 60s, in this very rosy way. We have failed to tell the other story. It's our fault. I don't blame the left, and you can't blame anybody else. We have failed. They've taken seriously. They put the time, money, and creativity into it, and we have not. And it is a free enough market that we have a possibility and an obligation to compete in it.
Michael, a free enough market for now.
Yeah, for now.
If we don't actually get the information out there and actually embrace all the ideas of freedom and democracy and living in a republic and what that means, it's interesting because I want to. God, I could talk to you forever. I swear, I'm going to bring you back as you should be like the special guest coming on at least once a month because it's so interesting with all of your documentaries and everything that you're working on. But especially working with our children, right? And, look, we live in a time now where our children are not hearing the message. They're hearing a very fundamentally different message. And, I don't know what it's going to take. I really think the documentary side is absolutely imperative. And it's a way of not only entertaining, but teaching and showing, another side to a story. But what about going into, since you're doing this, I'm going to start proposing ideas. What about working on really great children's shows? I mean, PBS is great for, having, what about producing great shows for kids that are not limited to what we're seeing now, and this seeping of indoctrination into the child's programming, because that's what we're seeing right now. I'm seeing that across the board. And by the way, Roswell is a very leftist show that I literally watched the 2 seasons on Netflix. It's for teenagers. And every single episode, somebody was either aborting an alien, it was totally fine, or they were freeing immigrants from the clutches of the evil Trump empire. But I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there because these are the kind of shows that our kids are watching.
Children's programming is important too, and we also have dramas that we want to do that would appeal to a younger audience as well as an older audience. And I think we have to be engaged in all aspects of this culture. I mean, it's not an either-or proposition, and it was never for the left. They didn't pick one. They did it all. They marched through all the institutions of culture, and we are not. And for us, it's always, oh, well, if we do this, we can't do that. But if we poured in, the money, I think, is key. They have poured in literally tens of billions. We need somebody who has billions that is willing to at least put up hundreds of millions and be serious about it. Then I think there could be a children's program initiative. there should be a educational media initiative. Our Clarence Thomas film, for instance, we are trying to get it used in middle and high schools, as is common for documentaries. But, the 1619 Project is way ahead in getting their curriculum into schools. So who is kind of getting an alternative view into schools? They have a network, once again, of entities that distribute to schools. For example, Scholastic, which is huge, and PBS itself does distribution to schools. And we have a few smaller ones. We're not doing nothing. But the size of these others, like Scholastic, just dwarfs ours. If we're serious about even getting existing material that's good into schools, we have to create these institutions. And the children's television thing is sort of its own world. When I was at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, children's television was what we funded, which is the little that I know about it, Sara. But I know it's its own world. It has its own people. They know each other. They go to their own conferences. We are not players in that world. All those people share the same ideological view. They don't talk about it much because it is children's programming, but they take for granted that their messages on race or on the environment or on any issue is surely more than appropriate for children. So I think we really need to get other messages. I mean, and we need to be producing them, and they have to be at the same quality as the left-wing children's programming. We can't take a shortcut.
No doubt.
And we always taking a shortcut, and it only is bad. I mean, you want to have children's programming, like I say about documentaries, that people who are not necessarily, on the right, Fox fans or Sarah Carter fans would necessarily, not only them, would watch it. You want to get ones where people just want their children to see something that would be largely patriotic and pro-American, but isn't, advocacy for something they don't believe in. So we need to win those people in every area.
I agree with you. And Michael, I totally agree with you, Michael. Where can folks go to get the latest on the work that your company is doing right now, and what can they do to help support that?
Well, they can go to our website, which is manifoldproductions.com, MANIFOLD, productions with an S.com, where you can see our work. We've done about 15 documentaries. I recommend them all. All were on PBS. And then this ongoing work, we are out there trying to make this happen. So I think people should stay tuned. We'll put more on there. I mean, I have a Twitter feed, Michael Pack _. Don't forget the underscore. We'll go to this other Michael Pack who's been very nice. And I've written 2.
I'm sure he's appreciating.
Well, he's been nice. And I have 2 recent articles about what I learned about both the media and the administrative state being in the Trump administration. But I think they should stay tuned. I mean, you and I need to talk. It needs to start with leadership in this movement, and that includes you, Sara, appealing to people to take this seriously, not just politics. I mean, and not just the next election. I'm not saying that isn't important, but that's where all conservative money wants to go. We have to find people who will take this seriously and not only fund high-quality productions from people like us, but will also, like we are doing, try to train the next generation and create these other institutions that can help these people along, like film schools, like distribution companies, like publicity companies, like talent agencies, all the infrastructure or ecosystem out there to support the left. We have to begin creating it. And I think a key thing, which is what you began on, Sara, is distribution. I mean, we need to create our own Amazon and Netflix that is not just a right-wing thing, but attempts to be a full-spectrum entertainment distribution entity like they are. That's a proposition.
Yeah, the motto has to be something like, we won't cancel you.
We won't cancel you, but we want to put on things.
That's it. It's as simple. We won't cancel you. We'll have a platform for you.
But also, they have to fund and support, like Netflix does and Amazon Originals and Netflix Originals, these kinds of films that people would want to see. And that is something beyond my own reach as Manifold Productions. That is a huge proposition. But we have to take it seriously. It's not just that they won't cancel you, because conservatives are building uncancelable platforms. But I mean, we need an entity that is both distributing and funding these programs, and that in the end has the reach of an Amazon or Netflix. I mean, that's the reason they have the power.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Michael. I appreciate it. I'm looking for someone out there. I want to work with you on this. I will work with you on this. Let's look for funders out there, people who can really, really get the ball rolling so we can get this moving. And, you know, we got Devin Nunes now and the Trump organization building a platform. So hopefully we will find the right people and move in the right direction. Again, thank you so much, Michael, for being a part of the Sara Carter Show.
Thank you, Sara.
Wow. So Michael Pack gave me a lot to think about. I've always wanted to either write children's books or work on films. And I did the documentary with The Dark Wire. That's our nonprofit, our foundation. And you can go to thedarkwire.com and see the film there, Not in Vain. It was a documentary on fentanyl and the border that we did in 2018. But I got to tell you, I really think it's important that we start doing more of that as conservatives and, even as independents. I just say as a freedom-loving American, I just want to get that out there. We shouldn't feel ashamed of that. And we should be fighting for freedom globally, right? That's a human right. Freedom is a cool thing. I keep telling everybody that. It really is cool. Socialism, wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt and banging on a drum, professing, the revolution at a march is not cool, guys. It's like, please enslave me, It's not cool. It's like telling the government to take control of your life. Our children deserve better than that. And we deserve better than that. We need to start espousing all of those ideals that make our nation so great. And let's make films that mean something, films that are good, that are as good or better, I would say better than what the left and the progressives are doing in Hollywood. We don't need to just push out all of this junk. We need to push out stuff that's really good, stuff that's going to get people's attention, and frankly, just entertain people and with good values attached to it as well. Folks, thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. I hope you all had an amazing, wonderful Christmas. I know I sure did. And I welcome you back in the new year. I'm very, very excited with the guests we have lined up for this coming year. God bless Radio America and the work getting us out there, and everyone who works on this show, Rich and Greg and everybody else, Luke, everybody else who puts together this show and helps make it possible. Again, thank you so much for being a part of my life. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every single one of you, and I hope we can continue bringing you quality shows with great interviews. You'll be the first to know here at the Sara Carter Show because we are taking the story back. God bless you, and God bless our great nation.
Hi, it's Dana Lash, host of The Dana Show. Every day, I'm here to keep you up to speed on the most important stories and info that you need to know in your very busy life. And if you're always on the go and you want to stay connected, just download our daily podcast and take it with you. It's a great way to get up to speed on what you need to know and what legacy media may not be telling you. Visit danaradio.com and click on the podcast link or subscribe at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.